The night I followed my wife, I didn't think I was about to lose my entire life. I thought I was just confirming a suspicion. A late meeting. Another excuse. Another, "I'll be home soon." But when I watched her park in front of a small house I'd never seen before, and walk inside holding another man's hand, I realized I wasn't just being lied to. I was being erased. What I discovered after that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. My wife, Laura, and I had been married for 23 years. We weren't perfect. But we were solid. At least, that's what I believed. We met in our early 20s, built our life slowly, struggled together, raised 2 kids, paid off a house, survived layoffs and medical bills. We were the couple people pointed to and said, "If they can make it, anyone can." Laura worked in real estate. I ran a small contracting business. Money was finally comfortable after years of scraping by. The kids were grown. College mostly paid for. This was supposed to be our easy chapter. The chapter where we traveled. Where we relaxed. Where we enjoyed what we built. Instead, this was the chapter where everything burned. It started with small things. Laura protecting her phone. Turning it face down. Leaving the room to take calls. Smiling at texts she wouldn't share. Working late more often. Suddenly going to the gym at night. Buying new clothes. Wearing perfume just to go to the grocery store. At first I told myself I was paranoid. After 23 years, you don't assume betrayal. You assume stress. Work pressure. Midlife stuff. But deep down, something felt wrong. That quiet instinct you try to silence. The one that whispers when everything looks fine on the surface. The first time I asked her about it, she laughed. "Are you accusing me of cheating?" she said playfully. I laughed too. Because it sounded ridiculous. Because I trusted her. Because we had built a life. Because we weren't that couple. But once a seed is planted, it grows. And the more I watched, the clearer it became. One night, she said she had a late showing for a client. I nodded. Kissed her goodbye. Waited 5 minutes. Then grabbed my keys. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe fear. Maybe instinct. Maybe love trying to save itself. I followed her car across town. Past familiar streets. Past neighborhoods we never went to. Until she turned onto a quiet road. And parked in front of a small beige house. Not fancy. Not random. Intentional. She got out. Smoothed her hair. Smiled. And a man opened the door. He pulled her into a hug like it wasn't the first time. She laughed. The same laugh she used with me. They walked inside together. Holding hands. I sat in my truck shaking. My chest felt hollow. Like air had been sucked out of my body. 23 years. Gone in one driveway. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember going to bed. I just remember staring at the ceiling all night. And thinking. How long? How many lies? How many nights? The next morning, she kissed me goodbye like nothing happened. I wanted to scream. Instead I smiled. Because when you love someone, your brain looks for reasons not to believe. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe he was a client. Maybe I was wrong. But deep down, I knew. Over the next 2 weeks, I followed her 3 more times. Same house. Same man. Same laughter. Same lies. There was no doubt anymore. My wife was having an affair. But that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. The worst part was what I found when I finally confronted the truth behind that house. And it wasn't just about love. It was about money. About secrets. About a life Laura had built without me. And about a betrayal that went far deeper than another man. I didn't confront her right away. Not because I didn't want to. Because I didn't know how to survive the answer. There's a moment, right before your life collapses, where you cling to the smallest scraps of denial. You tell yourself you need proof, like proof will hurt less than certainty. So I played a part one hated. I became quieter. Nicer. More agreeable. I asked her about her day like nothing was wrong. I cooked dinner, cleaned up, watched TV beside her, and smiled through the ache in my chest. Meanwhile, I started noticing all the little ways our marriage had been quietly rearranged around me. The new passwords. The new banking app on her phone. The way she insisted on handling the finances lately. The way the mail sometimes disappeared before I saw it. The way she had started checking the mailbox early, before I came home. I had always trusted her with money because she was organized and I was not. I built houses. I fixed problems. I didn't want to manage spreadsheets. In a normal marriage, that's just division of labor. In a marriage with secrets, it's a blindfold. One Tuesday afternoon, I had a job fall through early. I came home 2 hours before I normally would. The house was quiet. Laura's car wasn't there. And for some reason, I went straight to the home office. Not to snoop. To breathe. To be in a room where she couldn't smile at me and make me doubt my own eyes. That's when I saw it. A thick envelope on the desk. Not in a drawer. Not hidden. Just sitting there like it didn't matter if I found it. My name printed on the outside. Official looking. I stared at it for a long time before I touched it. Because I already knew, whatever was inside wasn't normal. I opened it with shaking hands. It was a notice from our mortgage company. Final notice, delinquent account. I blinked hard, like my eyes were lying. We had paid off most of the house years ago. We had always been on time. We weren't rich, but we were stable. I flipped through the pages. Past due amounts. Late fees. Threat of foreclosure. My mouth went dry. I dug deeper into the envelope. There were more notices. Credit card statements. A loan statement. Another loan statement. All in my name. All with balances I didn't recognize. My heart started pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. I sat down, staring at numbers that didn't feel real. And then I saw it. A line item on one of the statements. Transfer to R. Holloway. That name hit me like a punch. Because the mailbox had been stuffed with local real estate flyers lately, and I'd seen that name once. A realtor. Or an investor. Or someone in that world. The world Laura lived in. I swallowed hard. I pulled out my phone and searched the name. A profile photo popped up. And my stomach dropped. It was him. The man from the beige house. Suddenly, the affair wasn't just an affair. It was tied to our money. Our home. Our future. My identity. I felt sick. Like I'd been living beside a stranger. That night, Laura came home around 9 p.m. She looked fresh, like she hadn't been working. Hair done. Makeup perfect. That perfume again. She kissed my cheek and said, "Long day." I nodded. "You hungry?" I asked. She smiled. "Not really." I watched her closely. "Client showing?" I asked calmly. "Yeah," she said easily. "The market's crazy right now." I felt something in me go cold. Because she could lie that smoothly, without hesitation. 23 years. And she could look me in the eyes and invent a whole life in a single sentence. After she went upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my hands. Hands that had built homes for other people. Hands that had fixed plumbing, repaired roofs, poured concrete. Hands that had changed our kids' diapers and held them when they were sick. And I thought, I built everything. And I didn't even notice it was being sold out from under me. The next day, I called the mortgage company. I didn't tell Laura. I just called. The woman on the phone sounded tired. Like she'd had this conversation 1,000 times. "Yes, Mr. Bennett," she said. "Your account has been delinquent for 8 months." 8 months? I repeated. My throat tightened. "Yes. We've sent multiple notices." "I never received them," I said. There was a pause. "Our records show they were delivered." My mind raced. Laura had been intercepting the mail. "Is there any way to stop foreclosure?" I asked. She gave me a number. A payment amount so large it made my stomach twist. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in silence. 8 months. That meant while I was kissing my wife goodbye, while we were eating dinner together, while she was telling me, "I love you," she was letting our home slide toward foreclosure. And she never told me. I needed answers. Not guesses. Not assumptions. So I did something I'm not proud of. I hired a private investigator. A friend of a friend. A guy named Carl who'd been a cop for 20 years before retiring. When I told him what I wanted, he looked at me for a long moment and said, "You sure you want to know?" I said, "No." And then I said, "But I have to." Carl started with the basics. Who was Richard Holloway? What was the connection? What money had moved? What accounts were opened? Within 3 days, he called me. His voice was different. Careful. "Dan," he said, "you need to sit down." My heart began to race. "Just tell me." He exhaled. "That guy your wife's seeing? Richard Holloway?" "Yes. He's not just a boyfriend." "What is he?" Carl paused. "Your wife co-signed on a property with him. 2 years ago." I couldn't speak. "What?" "They bought an investment property together. Under an LLC. She used your credit to secure it." My vision blurred. "She stole my identity?" "She used your information," he said quietly. "And she's been moving money from your joint accounts." I felt like someone had poured ice water down my spine. "Why?" I whispered. Carl's voice dropped. "Because that's not the only property." My stomach twisted. "How many?" Carl hesitated. 4. 4. Properties. 2 years. Mortgages. Loans. My name. My credit. My life. And I had no idea. That night, I sat in my truck in our driveway for nearly an hour. I couldn't go inside. Because if I did, I wasn't sure I wouldn't explode. Our house looked normal from the outside. Warm lights. Neat lawn. Quiet street. But inside that house was a woman who had lied to me for years. A woman who had not only cheated on me, but had risked everything we built. And she was doing it with a man who had his own stake in my downfall. I confronted her the next morning. I waited until the kids were out of the house. Not because they were little, our kids were grown. But because this wasn't their burden. Not yet. Laura was in the kitchen, scrolling on her phone. I set the foreclosure notice on the counter. She looked at it. For a second, her face didn't change. Then her eyes flickered. Just a tiny movement. But enough. "You went through my things," she said sharply. That was her first reaction. Not shame. Not fear. Anger at being caught. Why is our house behind on payments? I asked. She sighed like I was annoying her. It's complicated. 8 months complicated? She crossed her arms. You don't understand how money works, she said. I laughed, but it came out bitter. I understand foreclosure. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I leaned forward. Who is Richard Holloway? Her jaw tightened. A client. A client you hold hands with? Silence. Her eyes stayed on mine. And then, without a single tear, she said. Fine. That one word felt like someone slammed a door. Yes, she said, voice calm. I'm seeing him. I stared at her. 23 years. And she said it like she was admitting she'd changed a dinner reservation. How long? I asked. She shrugged. Does it matter? That shrug hurt more than the affair. Because it meant she had already detached. She had already left mentally. I was just catching up. And the money? I asked. Her expression hardened. It was an opportunity. An opportunity to ruin our life? You always think small, she snapped. You're content with your little business and your little house. Richard thinks bigger. My blood ran cold. That's what this was. Not just lust. Not just love. Contempt. She had grown to resent me. To see me as an obstacle. I built this life, I said quietly. And I carried it, she shot back. I carried the emotional weight while you played handyman. I wanted something more. My hands trembled. So you stole from me? I did what I had to, she said. Her words weren't just cruel. They were familiar. Like something rehearsed. And then she said the sentence that made my heart stop. You can't stop it anyway. I blinked. What do you mean? She smiled slightly. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. Richard already has what he needs, she said. The contracts. The papers. The accounts. My stomach dropped. You used my name, I whispered. She didn't deny it. She just looked at me with something I'd never seen before. A kind of cold confidence. Like she had been preparing for this moment. What happens now? I asked. Laura exhaled. Now you sign the divorce papers, she said. And we keep it clean. We? She looked away. I'm not your enemy, Dan. I stared at her. Not your enemy. While she was helping another man take my home. My credit. My future. My life. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because something deeper than anger was forming. A realization. Laura wasn't just cheating. She was executing a plan. And I wasn't just losing my wife. I was being financially destroyed. By the person who knew me best. That night, I called Carl. I need everything, I said. Every document. Every transfer. Every property. Carl paused. Dan. What? His voice dropped. There's something else. My chest tightened. What? Carl exhaled slowly. Richard Holloway, he isn't just some investor. I held my breath. He has a history, Carl said. Financial scams. Lawsuits. He changes states every few years. My blood turned cold. And your wife isn't his first married girlfriend. The words hit me like a hammer. She's not the first. I whispered. Carl's voice was grim. No. He targets women in real estate. Women with access to credit. Women who can sign things without their husbands noticing. My stomach twisted. Laura wasn't just cheating. She was being used. Or, she was using him too. Either way, I was the one bleeding. Then Carl said something that made my skin crawl. There's a reason I'm telling you this now. Why? Because Richard Holloway isn't just trying to take your money, Carl said. He's trying to take your identity. I went cold. What does that mean? It means, Carl said carefully, you might not just lose your house. You might lose everything tied to your name. I sat in the dark with my phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding. Because I finally understood something terrifying. This wasn't a marriage crisis. This was a threat. And I was already behind. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the affair. Not even because of the foreclosure. I didn't sleep because of one sentence Carl said. He's trying to take your identity. That sentence echoed in my head over and over. Identity isn't just a name. It's your credit. Your history. Your social security. Your tax filings. Your legal standing. Your retirement. It's everything you've built quietly over decades. And suddenly I realized something horrifying. If Richard had access to my financial documents. If Laura had given him copies. He didn't just have leverage. He had power. The next morning I went straight to the bank. I didn't call. I didn't wait. I walked in and asked to speak with a branch manager. When she pulled up my accounts, her expression changed. Mr. Bennett, she said carefully, there have been several large transfers in the past year. I know, I said quietly. She clicked through more screens. Also, there are 2 business accounts under your tax ID that are not listed under your personal dashboard. I stared at her. What business accounts? She turned the monitor slightly so I could see. There it was. An LLC. Bennett Property Holdings. Registered under my name. Opened 18 months ago. Balance, nearly zero. But when she opened the transaction history, my chest tightened. Hundreds of thousands had moved through it. Money in. Money out. Loans taken. Properties bought. Properties refinanced. All under my name. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. I didn't open this, I whispered. She looked at me for a long second. Then someone had full access to your identification. I didn't need her to say it. I knew who that someone was. When I left the bank, my hands were shaking so badly I had to sit in my truck for 10 minutes before I could drive. I had always thought betrayal meant broken trust. I never imagined it could mean criminal liability. If those loans defaulted. If those properties failed. If the taxes weren't paid. It would all land on me. Not Richard. Not Laura. Me. Because the paperwork said it was mine. That night, I confronted Laura again. But this time, I wasn't emotional. I was calm. Cold. I laid out copies of everything I'd printed. The LLC. The transfers. The loan documents. Her face didn't change at first. Then it did. Not guilt. Calculation. You weren't supposed to see that yet, she said quietly. That word, yet, froze me. Yet? I repeated. She exhaled. Richard was going to handle it. Handle what? I snapped. The rollover, she said. What rollover? She hesitated. Then she said something that made the room tilt sideways. Your retirement accounts. I felt physically dizzy. What did you just say? She looked at me like I was being dramatic. It's not like you manage them. It was an opportunity. An opportunity to what? To move capital. I stared at her. Move my retirement into shell properties? She rolled her eyes. You don't understand how investment works. No, I said quietly. I understand fraud. That word hit her. For the first time, I saw fear. Real fear. Richard said we could triple it, she whispered. There it was. The truth. Not love. Not passion. Not even greed. Ambition. She wasn't running toward another man. She was running toward a different life. And she had decided I wasn't capable of building it. How long have you been planning this? I asked. She didn't answer. So I asked differently. How long have you been planning to leave me? Silence. Then she said something that felt like a knife sliding slowly into my chest. I've been unhappy for years, Dan. Years. I replayed our vacations. Our holidays. The night we sat on the porch talking about retirement. The quiet dinners. The inside jokes. All of it suddenly looked like theater. You could have told me, I said quietly. And what? She snapped. Have you panic? Shrink your world even smaller? I shook my head. You didn't want a partner, I said. You wanted an exit. Then she said something that changed everything. You think Richard is using me? She asked. My heart thudded. I know he is. She laughed, but it wasn't confident anymore. You're wrong. Am I? He believes in me, she said sharply. He believes I deserve more. And you think I don't? She hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. But then something unexpected happened. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. And for the first time in this entire nightmare, I saw her flinch. Just slightly. I stepped closer. Who is it? She locked the screen. No one. Let me see. It's work. Laura. For the first time in 23 years, I grabbed her wrist. Not violently. But firmly. She froze. I held out my hand. Slowly, she handed me the phone. The message was from Richard. But it wasn't romantic. It wasn't loving. It wasn't even friendly. It said, we need to accelerate. He's asking questions. My stomach dropped. Accelerate what? I scrolled up. More messages. The refinance is almost approved. Once it clears, we're out. Don't lose control now. Out. Out where? Out of the marriage? Out of the state? Out of the country? I looked up at Laura. What does this mean? She looked smaller now. Less confident. Less composed. It means, she whispered, you weren't supposed to find out yet. Find out what? Her eyes filled, not with tears, but with something like panic. He's moving the money, she said quietly. How much? She swallowed. All of it. The world narrowed. All of it meant my retirement. The house equity. The business line of credit. The investments. Everything. When? I asked. She hesitated. Friday. It was Wednesday. For the first time since this started, fear replaced anger. Because this wasn't about divorce anymore. This was about survival. If the money moved, I would spend the next decade untangling lawsuits. Proving fraud. Fighting banks. Fighting courts. And Richard? He'd disappear like he always did. Different state. Different name. Different woman. And Laura? I didn't know. Because suddenly, she didn't look like a mastermind. She looked like someone who realized she was standing on the edge of a cliff. Did he promise to leave with you? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. I already knew. You think he loves you? I asked. Silence. He's done this before, I said. Her eyes snapped up. What? He's targeted married women in real estate before. Her face went pale. That's not true. He changes states every few years. That's not true. He uses their credit. Their names. Their access. She shook her head. No. And then he disappears. Her breathing became uneven. You're lying, she whispered. I hired someone, I said calmly. He's done this before. Her confidence cracked right there. Like glass under pressure. For the first time, I saw something I hadn't seen in months. Doubt. Real doubt. She grabbed her phone again and stepped away from me. I need to call him. She walked into the other room. I could hear her voice, tight, sharp. Is this true? She demanded. Pause. What do you mean accelerate? Longer pause. Her voice changed. What do you mean I'm overreacting? And then silence. Long silence. Then one word. What? She came back into the kitchen pale. He said you're trying to manipulate me, she whispered. Of course he did. He said you're scared because you can't control me anymore. I looked at her. And in that moment, something became painfully clear. Richard didn't just want money. He wanted separation. Isolation. He wanted her cut off from me long enough to finish the transfer. And then her phone buzzed again. A new message. She read it. And the color drained from her face. What? I asked. Her voice barely worked. He says we need to meet tonight. Where? She hesitated. At the beige house. My heart pounded. Why? She looked at me like she had finally realized the ground wasn't solid beneath her feet. He says we need to sign something. That's when the second layer of fear hit me. Not just financial ruin. But legal binding. If she signed something tonight. If she transferred something irrevocable. It might be too late. Are you going? I asked. She looked torn. Terrified. Conflicted. And suddenly, I realized something else. For all her ambition, for all her coldness, for all her resentment. She hadn't expected to be caught in the middle. She thought she was the one steering. Now she wasn't sure. I need you to answer me, I said. Are you going? She looked at the phone. Then at me. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she whispered. I don't know. That was the moment the story changed again. Because until now, I thought I was fighting my wife. Now I realized. I might be trying to save her. From a man who was about to disappear. With my life in his pocket. And what happened that night at the beige house was something I never saw coming. The drive to the beige house felt longer than it ever had before. Laura sat stiff in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her phone clenched in her hand like a lifeline. Neither of us spoke. Every streetlight that passed felt like a countdown. I kept thinking about everything that could go wrong. If Richard convinced her to sign something irreversible. If he had already prepared documents. If he was planning to disappear tonight. And the thought that terrified me most. If Laura was still choosing him over me. When we pulled up, the house looked quiet. Too quiet. No lights on inside. Just the porch light glowing softly. My stomach tightened. This feels wrong, I said. Laura swallowed. He said he'd be waiting. Call him, I said. She tried. Straight to voicemail. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then the front door opened slowly. Richard stood there, smiling, like nothing was wrong. "Come in," he said warmly. "I was worried you wouldn't make it." His voice was calm, controlled. The voice of someone who believed he was still in charge. The living room looked exactly the same. Clean. Simple. No sign of panic. No suitcases. No boxes. Just a folder on the coffee table. My heart thudded. That must be the paperwork, I thought. Richard gestured toward the couch. "Sit," he said casually. Laura hesitated, then sat. I remained standing. Richard noticed. "Dan, right?" he said. I nodded. He smiled wider. "I'm glad you're here. Saves time." That sentence chilled me. Saves time for what? I asked. "For clarity," he said smoothly. He picked up the folder. "These are refinance documents," he said. "Once signed, the funds will be released." Laura leaned forward. "And then what?" she asked. Richard tilted his head slightly. "Then we move forward." "Together?" she asked softly. He paused. Just a fraction too long. Enough for me to see it. The calculation. The hesitation. And suddenly, I knew. "You're not leaving with her," I said quietly. Richard's smile flickered. "What makes you think that?" "You never were," I said. "You were leaving with the money." Laura turned sharply toward him. "Richard?" He exhaled slowly. "Laura, don't let him twist this." "Are you leaving with me?" she asked again. This time there was no softness. Just fear. Richard's jaw tightened. "Let's not complicate things," he said. Her eyes filled. "Answer me." Silence. Then he said it. "This was never about running away together." The words landed like gunshots. Laura's face collapsed. "You said you loved me." "I said a lot of things," he replied calmly. "And the properties?" she whispered. "Business," he said simply. "And me?" He shrugged slightly. "You were helpful." I had never seen heartbreak look so immediate. Like something physically breaking inside a person. Laura shook. "You used me." He didn't deny it. "You used my husband's name." "You offered it," he said coolly. "You were willing to risk everything." Tears streamed down her face. "I thought we were building something." Richard sighed, like a teacher tired of explaining a lesson. "You were building it," he said. "I was collecting it." The room felt suddenly smaller. He turned to me. "You're smarter than I thought," he said. "Most men don't catch on this early." My blood boiled. "You've done this before." He smiled faintly. "More times than I can count." Laura stared at him in horror. "You said I was special." "You were," he replied. "You had access." That sentence crushed what was left of her illusions. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Somewhere warm," he said casually. "And when?" "Tomorrow morning." My stomach tightened. "After the funds clear." Laura sobbed quietly. "You're ruining us." He shrugged. "You ruined yourselves." That's when I noticed something behind him. A suitcase near the hallway. Partially hidden. Already packed. He had been ready to leave. Tonight was just paperwork. Closure. "You won't get away with this," I said. He smiled calmly. "People like me always do." Then he leaned in slightly. "By the time you call the police, the money will be gone. By the time lawyers move, I'll be gone. And by the time courts catch up, you'll be too broke to fight. The confidence in his voice was terrifying. Because it wasn't arrogance. It was experience. Laura stood suddenly. No, she whispered. Richard sighed. Sit down. No, she said louder. I'm not signing anything. His smile faded. This isn't a choice anymore. My chest tightened. What do you mean? He looked at me calmly. Your credit is already tied to everything, he said. The transfer happens whether she signs tonight or not. Laura gasped. You said I had to sign. I said it was easier if you did, he replied. But it's already in motion. She stumbled back. You lied. Yes, he said simply. For the first time, I saw real fear in Laura's eyes. Not fear of losing me. Fear of realizing she had been played. Fear of realizing she wasn't the one in control. Fear of realizing she had helped destroy the man who never betrayed her. I stepped forward. You won't walk away, I said. Richard looked amused. Oh. You made a mistake tonight, I said calmly. And what's that? You let me see you. His eyes narrowed slightly. You think that matters? Yes, I said. Because now I know exactly who you are. He laughed softly. You already knew. No, I said. Now I know how you operate. He tilted his head. And men like you get sloppy when they think they've won. Silence hung between us. Laura suddenly wiped her face. Her voice steadied. Richard, she said quietly. He turned toward her. Yes? You said you loved me. He rolled his eyes slightly. This again. If you loved me, she said slowly, you'd leave the money. He froze. What? Leave it, she said. Prove it was real. He stared at her like she was insane. You're emotional, he said. Leave it, she repeated. Or admit you never cared. He scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. Her eyes filled with tears again. So you never loved me? He didn't answer. Because the truth was obvious. She looked at me then. And something passed between us. Regret. Shame. Pain. But also clarity. The clarity of someone finally waking up. I was wrong, she whispered. I nodded slowly. Yes, I said. You were. Richard sighed. This is getting dramatic, he said. Let's end it. He walked toward the door. I'll be gone by morning, he said over his shoulder. Good luck cleaning up the mess. Laura cried out. Richard. He didn't look back. And that's when everything changed. Because as he reached for the door handle, there was a knock. Sharp. Loud. Commanding. Not a friendly knock. Not a neighbor knock. A knock that meant authority. Richard froze. We all did. Another knock. Police. My heart slammed. Laura gasped. Richard's face went pale. Open the door now. He looked at me slowly. What did you do? He whispered. I didn't answer. Because I hadn't called the police. But someone had. Laura stared at me. I didn't, she whispered. I shook my head. Neither did I. The knocking grew louder. Sir, open the door. Richard's eyes darted around the room. Then, something I'll never forget happened. He smiled. Not calmly. Not confidently. Desperately. Because he knew. The game was finally over. The knocking didn't stop. It grew louder. Firmer. Like the sound of a life changing whether you were ready or not. Open the door now. Richard's face had lost all color. Not fear the way normal people feel it. This was the fear of a man who had finally run out of exits. Laura clutched her arms around herself. I stood frozen, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might break through my ribs. Richard leaned close to me and whispered, venom in his voice, "You think you've won?" Before I could answer, he straightened and walked to the door slowly, adjusting his jacket like a businessman about to greet a client. He opened it. 2 uniformed officers stood there. Behind them, a man in a suit holding a folder. Detective. Federal agent. I didn't know. But the look on his face said everything. "Richard Holloway," the man said calmly. "You're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation." Richard laughed weakly. "This is a misunderstanding." The agent didn't smile. "We have warrants in 3 states." The color drained from Richard's face. Laura let out a soft cry. The agent stepped inside, eyes scanning the room. Then he looked directly at me. "Mr. Bennett?" "Yes. You're the victim in several of these cases." My legs felt weak. Victim. The word felt strange. Real. Heavy. The agent continued, "Your wife contacted us earlier today." I turned sharply toward Laura. "You called?" Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. "I realized he was going to take everything. And I realized I helped him." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry." And for the first time in months, I believed her. Not because of tears. Because of action. Richard tried to speak. Tried to protest. But the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The sound was louder than anything in the room. Final. He turned toward Laura. "You did this to me," he snapped. She shook. "No," she said quietly. "You did this to yourself." The truth he had avoided his whole life. As the officers led him out, the agent stayed behind. "There's more," he said carefully. My chest tightened. "What?" "Richard has over 12 victims," he said. "Mostly married women in real estate. Millions stolen." Laura covered her mouth. "And you," he said, looking at me, "were one of the biggest accounts." I swallowed. "Is the money gone?" He shook his head. "Most of it was frozen this afternoon." Relief slammed into me so hard I had to sit down. "You're saying you won't lose your home," he said. "Your retirement accounts are intact." I closed my eyes. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. But then came the hard part. The emotional reckoning. The silence after chaos. The truth settling in. After the police left, Laura collapsed into a chair. "I ruined everything," she whispered. I didn't yell. I didn't comfort her. I just stood there. Because forgiveness and accountability can exist in the same space. "I loved you," she said through tears. "I know," I replied quietly. "That's what makes it worse." She looked up. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did," I said. "And you kept doing it." Silence stretched. "I wanted more out of life," she whispered. "So did I," said softly. "I just wanted it with you." The following weeks were brutal. Lawyers. Statements. Banks. Investigations. Every secret laid bare. Every lie dissected. Our marriage wasn't just broken. It was autopsied. Laura faced charges too. Not prison, but financial crimes. Probation. Fines. Restitution. The court acknowledged she was manipulated. But manipulation doesn't erase responsibility. She signed papers. She moved money. She hid mail. She betrayed trust. And she had to own that. Our kids found out. That was the hardest part. Explaining that their parents weren't heroes. Just broken humans who made terrible choices. Our daughter cried. Our son went silent. But slowly, painfully, they understood. Not forgave. But understood. Laura asked for counseling. For another chance. For forgiveness. And this is the part most stories make pretty. Mine isn't. I didn't rush back. I didn't fall into her arms. I didn't pretend love fixes betrayal. Because it doesn't. Trust is built brick by brick. And it had been bulldozed. We separated. Not out of hate. Out of necessity. I needed to rediscover who I was without constant fear. Without lies. Without walking on emotional glass. She needed to face the consequences of her choices alone. Months passed. Then a year. Slow healing. Hard conversations. Long nights. Therapy. Rebuilding finances. Rebuilding identity. Rebuilding dignity. Eventually, Laura and I met again. Not as a couple. As two people who had shared a life. I don't expect forgiveness, she said quietly. I just wanted you to know I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be better. I nodded. That's all anyone can do. We never remarried. We remained respectful. Connected through our children. Connected through history. But not through marriage. And that was the healthiest ending for both of us. Here's what I learned. Betrayal doesn't always come from hate. Sometimes it comes from ambition. From resentment. From the belief that you deserve more than the life you quietly built. But when you chase a new life by destroying the old one, you don't find happiness. You find ruin. The hardest part wasn't losing my wife. It was realizing I almost lost myself to someone else's greed. And the moment I chose truth over comfort was the moment I finally got my life back.